American Supreme Court recently reaffirmed the right for gay people to marry. But why was this right in the question in the first place? And are we out of the dark, or are there more legal challenges coming to endanger this fundamental human right? For this and more questions, listen up. So before we get to the topic at hand, just a kind reminders, I'm building this channel to shine a little bit more light on the LGBTQ topics and the LGBTQ leadership. If you can spare a follow or like, every little bit helps. And now to the topic itself. First of all, what is the context? Then I'm going to talk about what actually happened, and then let's talk about what is the future. So, the context. As you know, United States in 2015 legalized gay marriage. Prior to this, it was essentially every state for itself. Like there were states where it was illegal, such as Ohio, for instance, right? And there were states where it was legal. And obviously, it created a certain issues. And eventually, there was this case called um, Obergefell case, like that's the name of the person. And what happened to this person is that they lived in Ohio with his partner for 21 years. They were together, and his partner was dying. And good people from the community and from the family paid for like a medical jet so they could fly to I think Maryland and they could get married, so they could die as husband and husband. And they did this, which is like super romantic if you ask me, right? And then get back to Ohio, and Ohio was like, no, 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 we are not recognizing this. And then obviously they escalated this to the Supreme Court through the like chain of different courts, right? Like local courts all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court then eventually, by the I think 5-4 majority, decided that this is not right. According to the Constitution, they have like equality rights, right? So interpret the Constitution in a way that the gay marriage in 2015 became a federal right as opposed to a choice of each separate state. And since then, which is like really interesting, we had a lot of people that are dependent on these laws, right? Like for instance, you have 300,000 kids in the United States that are dependent on this law. And if we would cancel it, these kids would like have a huge legal problem, right? Because all of a sudden the marriage of their parents in some states would not be recognized. Now, what is happening? And why did we like consider this thing to be endangered in the first place, right? So we have to understand that the like Supreme Court became quite a bit of conservative thanks to President Trump, who um, you can call it in a controversial way put in certain justices. Also, Mitch McConnell like blocked a certain justice for Obama. Not important for this topic. The Supreme Court is significantly more conservative than it used to be, and there was this case of Kim Davis. There was this lady that was like very religious, and she was working for the state, and she was the clerk that was issuing the marriage licenses, and it was kind of against her conscience to have two men or like people of the same gender marry. And so she decided not to issue these licenses, despite this being like a federal right or like a constitutional right of the gay people. So she got fined $300,000 and even went to prison, I think. And then certain very conservative groups picked up her case and used as a vehicle to push on Supreme Court to try to kind of reconsider whether this is really a fundamental human right according to the American Constitution. Um, and like, okay, they managed to push it. And then how Supreme Court works is that every now and then they meet up and look at the topics that they could um, look into, and then essentially vote whether these are the topics or this particular topic is the topic that they wanna look into. And that's what happened recently, right? Like this case, which was like represented by this Kim Davis case, got to them. The impact would be reconsidering the LGBTQ marriages as a like fundamental rights in the United States, and they voted by a majority not to look into it, right? There were still a few judges that voted to look into it, but it wasn't enough to look into the case, which is fantastic, right? So they're not even gonna like think about it. It's the message that they're sending. And now, um, on one side, the little bit more conservative part of the bench, these people are usually using arguments of overreaching of the federal powers. So they are saying it shouldn't be the federal law whether gay people can or cannot marry. It should be left up to the states, which is, from what I understood, it's quite chaotic, but from what I understood, also President Trump has this opinion. And then the like other argument is the religious freedoms, because religious freedom is also something that it's like very strongly embedded in American democracy, and they're essentially claiming that if you're a person who is not aligned on having LGBTQ marriage, then you shouldn't be forced to participate, like giving marriage licenses or like whatever, right? Um, but apparently it was enough, because on the other side of the bench, the majority thinks that it either is fundamental human right because they're liberal, or they're saying that there's too many people who are depending in the last decade on this interpretation of the Constitution, and that um, reverting it would create large damage, right? And this is where it like differentiates to abortion, because abortion, you stop it, but it doesn't retroactively impact the people who like used this right in the past. Whereas in here you have families that are like continuously married, so if you and kids that are living in these families. So if you take away the right, then what happens to the people who are married? What happens to the 300,000 kids who are living in the families that are really depending on this law? Now, um, third part: are we out of the dark, and is the LGBTQ marriage safe? Well, the answer is, well, no, it is not. First of all, there is one more sitting when they will like revisit this. I don't expect any surprises essentially, but theoretically it could still like revert, and they could still look into the case. But it seems that the like positions are pretty fortified. I mean, the swing vote. I think Amy Coney Barrett is one of the like swing votes. She even like wrote a book about this, saying that yeah, there's too many dependents, so I'm not gonna vote for it, for like abolishing this right. But like, okay, we should probably watch out for the 14th if some surprises don't happen. And then they essentially say that they will not look into um, the LGBTQ marriages based on the Kim Davis case. But it doesn't mean that like conservative lobbyists cannot find a better case that would, I don't know, uh, pose a different right that comes from the Constitution against the LGBTQ rights, and then there might have a chance to reopen this on the Supreme Court again. But like, so we are not completely out of the dark, right? It's not fortified. What is important is that it's still a win, right? Like, America sent a strong signal. Like, gay marriage is our fundamental right. This is how we interpret our constitution. We checked again. This is still how we interpret our constitution, even in this like very conservative Trump era. And I think this is something that we should celebrate. So why don't you, have a little celebration with your family or with your spouse, and let's hope that it stays this way. Have a lovely day. Thank you.